Questions 27 through 29. Listen to a teacher talking in a biology class.
Of all the species of squirrels that exist, probably the most interesting one is the flying squirrel. It doesn't really fly, though. After all, the squirrel doesn't have wings, and it can't take off from the ground either. Instead of flying, it glides.
How is it able to do that?
Its body has a special membrane that stretches between its legs and feet. This membrane is found on both sides of its body. It's made of skin and fur and is very flexible. Normally, the membrane is tucked along the sides of its body. Take a look at the picture on page 156 in your books. See it? That ridge-like fold of fur along its side is the membrane. So, what does the squirrel do with that membrane? Let me tell you. First, in order to take to the air, the flying squirrel needs to be high above the ground. It typically jumps from tall trees. When it leaps into the air, it stretches its legs. This causes the membrane to unfold and to become taut. I guess it's sort of like a parachute at that point. This membrane catches the air and allows the squirrel to glide. In some cases, it can even act like a wing and enable the squirrel to gain a small amount of altitude. Yes, Gina?
How far can one of these squirrels glide?
In general, they make relatively short glides of around 5 to 30 meters. However, the longest glide ever observed by a person was nearly 90 meters. Why don't we take a look at a video, and then you can see the flying squirrel in action?
Now answer the questions. Number 27. What is the teacher mainly talking about? Number 28. What is the purpose of the membrane that the flying squirrel has? Number 29. What will the teacher probably do next? Questions 30 through 33. Listen to a teacher talking in a history class.
Two of the oldest civilizations in human history are Egypt and Mesopotamia. We talked about both of them during the past 2 days, right? As I hope you all remember, they were fairly different societies. But I want to talk today about how they had some similarities. For one, they both built rather large structures. Now, when I mention Egypt, what do you usually think about? Yeah, that's right, pyramids. The Egyptians built pyramids all over the place. Many of them are still standing. Okay, but when I mention Mesopotamia, what kinds of buildings do you think about? No one? Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, the Mesopotamians built ziggurats. That's ziggurats. There's a picture of them on page 218 in your books. Take a look. Here's a picture of a pyramid. As you can see, the main differences between the two are their shapes and sizes. Notice that the Egyptian pyramid is more triangular in shape. Also, the pyramid is smooth-sided and its sides are rather steep. But look at the ziggurat here. You can see that it has a stepped appearance. By stepped, I mean that the ziggurats look like it has different levels, doesn't it? It looks sort of like a lot of different-sized boxes stacked on top of one another. The biggest box is on the bottom, and the boxes get smaller as you go higher. Oh, and notice that the ziggurat has a set of stairs leading to the top. The pyramid lacks this. Why did ziggurats have stairs? Each had a temple at the top. So the Mesopotamians climbed the stairs to reach the temple. This brings me to another key difference. Ziggurats were places of worship. They were used by priests to pray to the various Mesopotamian gods. But the pyramids were tombs for the pharaohs. They were the kings of ancient Egypt. Many pharaohs built pyramids to be their tombs when they died. The largest one took nearly 20 years to build. How did the Egyptians and Mesopotamians build these huge structures? That's a good question. No one is sure, but people have some theories. Let me tell you about a few of them right now.
Now answer the questions. Number 30. What is the main idea of the talk? Number 31. What does the teacher imply about ziggurats? Number 32. How is a ziggurat different from a pyramid? Number 33. Why does the teacher talk about the pharaohs? Questions 34 through 38. Listen to a teacher talking in a biology class. One of the most beautiful creatures in the forest is the deer. It lives pretty much everywhere in the world except for Australia and Antarctica. There are many species of deer. However, the one I want to talk about is the white-tailed deer. It mostly lives in North America. I'm sure that many of you have seen this deer before. I actually saw a couple of them near the road as I drove to school this morning. Anyway, the first thing I should mention is that we have different names for male and female deer. The male is usually called a buck. Some people call it a stag or a hart, though. That's H-A-R-T, not H-E-A-R-T. The female deer, on the other hand, is called a doe, and a baby deer is a fawn. There are several differences between stags and does. A stag is bigger than a doe. A stag weighs 100 kilograms on average. However, some of them can grow to be much larger than that. As for females, they average around 70 kilograms in weight. Another big difference between the two is antlers. Antlers are the long, sharp, pointed, bony protrusions on a deer's head. They begin as two short, stubby knobs. As they grow, they can form several branches that have many points. But only stags have antlers. Does don't have them. Oh, here's something you might not know. Antlers fall off every year. Stags lose their antlers during the winter, and then new ones grow during the spring and summer. Deer are mammals, so that means the mothers give birth to live animals. A doe has between 1 and 3 fawns when it gives birth. The fawns have white spots when they're born. For the first 6 weeks of their lives, they drink their mother's milk. Remember, that's another characteristic of mammals. But fawns don't exclusively drink milk. They can walk pretty much as soon as they're born, so they can forage for grass and other food right away. Now answer the questions. Number 34. What is the teacher mainly talking about? Number 35. What is probably true about the teacher? Number 36. What does the teacher imply when he says this? That's H-A-R-T, not H-E-A-R-T. Number 37. What does the teacher say about antlers? Number 38. What does a fawn look like when it is born? Questions 39 through 42. Listen to part of a discussion in a literature class.
One of my favorite American writers is Edgar Allan Poe. I'm sure that all of you have heard about him. Can any of you tell me something about him? Tony?
I believe he lived during the 19th century, and I remember that he had a bunch of problems. I think he suffered from depression or something.
That's a good start. Thanks, Tony. He's correct, class. Poe was born in 1809 and died in 1849. His short life was quite sad. His parents died before he turned 3, so he lived with a foster family. Poe dealt with a number of issues during his life. He had gambling and drinking problems. He suffered from depression. His life was definitely not a happy one. Many people believe that Poe's dark life heavily influenced his writing. So let's talk about Poe's literature. He made a number of contributions to the world of literature. Jessica, do you happen to know any of them?
He wrote that poem called The Raven. I really like it a lot. It's kind of creepy, but that seems characteristic of Poe's writing. He wrote several works of horror as well, didn't he?
You are correct. As for The Raven, we're going to read that as soon as we finish talking about Poe's life, so hold on for a moment concerning it. Also, you're right about Poe's works of horror. He is said to have invented that genre as well as the modern detective story. He also wrote some early science fiction and is considered one of the founders of the modern short story. That's a pretty impressive resume, isn't it? Poe is most famous, however, for his horror stories. The most well-known are The Fall of the House of Usher, The Mask of the Red Death, and The Pit and the Pendulum. Each story deals with death in very gruesome ways. We're going to read one of those stories. We're also going to read The Murders in the Rue Morgue, which is the first modern detective tale. You're going to love it, but for the time being, let's look at some of Poe's poetry.
Now answer the questions. Number 39. What is the discussion mainly about? Number 40. What happened to Edgar Allan Poe when he was a child? Number 41. Why does the teacher mention the murders in the Rue Morgue? Number 42. What will the students probably do next? Stop. This is the end of the listening section.